What's going on, everybody? Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and come up on today's show, I want to dive into the latest ESPN article where they suggested that the Vikings should trade down in the NFL draft, and they also talked about last year's draft for the Vikings. So we'll dive into that. Then in the second half of today's show, I want to go over 5 new draft targets for the Vikes that we have not yet talked about on the channel. So it's going to be a fun one, but before we dive into it, you guys let me know. Who is your dream draft pick for the Minnesota Vikings? And let's just play the hypothetical. They're sitting there at pick 24. Who is your dream draft pick? Let me know that name down below in the comments section. So it's Bill Barnwell talking about the Vikings' past 2 drafts, and this was him leading into the point that the Vikings should probably move down in this year's draft. He said, in his first couple of drafts, general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah leaned into trading down and adding extra draft picks. In 2024, though, he went the opposite direction. He traded up before the draft even took place, sending a pair of second-round picks to the Texans to add an additional first-rounder. He then moved up twice in round 1, sending 2 picks to the Jets to move up 1 spot for quarterback J.J. McCarthy, then shipped 3 more to the Jaguars to jump ahead 6 spots for edge rusher Dallas Turner. In all, by the Stewart chart, Adofo-Mensah traded away 10 picks and 73 points worth of draft capital. In return, he landed the 10th and 17th picks and 6th and 7th round selections. Those picks are worth 37.4 points. In other words, the Vikings paid nearly $2 for every $1 draft capital they use. Objectively, these moves are more off to a worrying start. McCarthy missed the season with a knee injury, and while the Vikings could not have known their quarterback of the future would get injured, they're already down 1 year of the value provided by his rookie deal. So, listen, a lot to dive into there, but I think the number one takeaway I had, just kind of reading Bill Barnwell, really lay that out, how much draft capital that the Vikings gave up for these 2 guys. There is a lot of pressure on J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner, and there's no doubt about that. Let's just say J.J. McCarthy, I don't think he will be. If he is a bust, that is going to get him fired. If Dallas Turner doesn't turn it around, hopefully he has kind of like a Nolan Smith resurgence here in his second season. If both those guys do not end up working out, I promise you this, his seat will be very hot very quickly, and I think it will lead to him getting fired, considering the other day I was looking back and just looking at how stacked last year's first round truly was. And you can make an argument right now. Now, obviously, JJ hasn't played. Dallas Turner got very limited reps. But those are probably the 2 worst picks as it stands right now in the 2025 draft. So a lot of pressure on those guys. But again, at the end of the day, I got faith in them figuring out and being high-impact players in the NFL. But he also had this to say, saying it's too early to draw significant conclusions from those trades. And one of the reasons Turner wasn't able to crack the starting lineup was the success of Adofo-Mensah's free agent signings, with Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel having great seasons for the 14-3 Vikings. At the same time, Minnesota had the league's oldest team by snap-weighted age. And after trading multiple picks in deals for Turner and running back Jordan Mason, it doesn't have 2nd, 4th, or 7th round selections in this draft. The Vikings have a league low 4 picks and the least draft capital of any team by Stewart's model. Naturally, they will expect more out of McCarthy and Turner in their second seasons, but this team needs to add young talent to its roster. And I actually agree with Bill Barnwell here. I think it is probably likely that the Vikings end up trading down because, a lot of these draft analysts, they all say, hey, the cream of the crop of this year's draft is you got the top 8 guys, you got the top 10 guys. Most guys only have around 11, 12 first-round grades. But then you get to the middle where it's 15 through 45, and they're all relatively the same value. And knowing how that guy thinks right there, he's always trying to get the most value of every situation. I expect him to trade back because just like last year, we knew it was one of the best first-round draft classes over the last 10 seasons. What did Kwesi do? He decided to go move up, spend a boatload of draft capital, and again, it gets me back to the point that J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner better be high-impact players or else those trades are going to be looking real bad here in a couple years. But also, I got full faith in both those guys doing just that. But more news on the NFL draft here. We're actually going to be going live here on the channel. So first off, make sure you guys are subscribed. Probably going live at around pick 10. It's going to be a long 3-4 hour stream. So if you guys want to make sure you are tuned in, hit that notification bell and hit that subscribe button today. All right, let's go over some 5 new draft targets for the Minnesota Vikings here because, listen, I've talked about guys like Kenneth Grant, Nicky Minwari, a lot of these guys a lot, but I just wanted to go a different direction and kind of talk about some shocking picks. I could see the Vikings making at pick number 24, and I think the biggest shocker would be actually J.J. McCarthy's former teammate, Colston Loveland. I am a massive fan of this guy. Him and Tyler Warren, like if the Vikings could get their hands on either of those guys, I would be thrilled. Just because I think both these guys could step in and Tyler Warren be a top 5 guy right away, but I also think Colston Loveland could be a top 10 tight end right away. Now, like the raw numbers aren't going to blow you away, but this guy is 6'5". He's got unreal wiggle. He's got great hands, and he is a blue chip tight end prospect in my opinion. And the fact that some people are even having conversations who's the better tight end, Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, I think it speaks to how highly respected Loveland is. And also, the J.J. Loveland connection would be awesome. Played together in college, had an awesome connection there for Michigan. And, I'm sure what you're asking yourself, well, what about T.J. Hockenson? Why would we spend a first-round pick on a tight end? And you're right. I am saying this would be a situation, let's just say a team like the New York Jets who desperately need a tight end. They say, you know what, we'll maybe give you our third-round pick. You can move off Hawk in his contract. You get younger at a key position in the NFL, and you also pick up some extra draft capital, like we were just talking about, the Vikings desperately need. But what about another wide receiver and another weapon for J.J. McCarthy, Emeka Egbuka? I think this guy would be my dream slot receiver for the Vikings. Now, obviously, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and obviously Emeka are all, very versatile wide receivers, but he would be disgusting in the slot. And, this past year for Ohio State, went for over 1,000 yards in a stacked wide receiver room with Jeremiah Smith and, Will Howard, good college quarterback, doesn't blow you away by any means. But I think this would also give the Vikings almost Jordan Addison insurance where, hey, Addison's eligible next season for a contract extension. If you go draft a wide receiver in round 1, it would piss off Addison, I guarantee it, because he could probably read the tea leaves here and say, hey, I'm probably not going to get that extension. But also, I still find it hard to believe that the Vikings would want to give Addison $30 million. You're already paying Jefferson $35. I could be wrong, but just keep your eyes out on a potential wide receiver play early in the draft this year for the Vikes. And we can kick it to the combine warrior here. Maxwell Hairston ran the fastest 40 time at the NFL scouting combine. Obviously, freak athlete, versatile, physical corner, and he's anywhere mocked between like pick 25 and pick 45. So I think this is more of a trade down option. But he had a pretty good RAS score, 9.71. Like I said, 40-yard dash, ridiculous. 4.28 vertical jump, almost 40 inches as well. Now he is a 5'11" corner, a $183, so a little bit on the lighter side. But I still think this is a guy where if you get him in the hands of Brian Flores, I think it would end up being a good pickup. But I would also, and I'm not saying this is like an argument to why the Vikings shouldn't take a corner. I got a lot of faith in Mekhi Blackman. And if you are going to take a corner, I would honestly rather have it be 3rd, 5th round, where Harrison, it's probably would be a trade back option where you're at pick, 28 to 37 if you do end up trading back out of the 1st round. But a defensive tackle here, T.J. Sanders, love this guy as a prospect, and I think he's another trade back option for the Vikings. Super, super long arms, freak athlete, and he is in that typical mold of just a pass rusher from the interior. This past season, he had 33 pressures for South Carolina, 27 pressures the year before that. Great in the run game as well, and he's really solid at getting his hands in passing lanes. Got great extension, can use his pad level at a high level, and another reason why I want the Vikings to strongly consider defensive line in round 1 is just in 2 years from now when Hargrave and Allen are off this football team, I would want a guy who has already been in the system, learn from those 2 guys, who also has some high-end talent. I think T.J. Sanders is just that. But also a North Dakota State guy here, Gray Zabel. We talked about Zabel a couple times on the channel, but he could be an easy plug-and-play guy at the left guard spot. Played tackle in college. Some people think he could even play some center. I think he could play some guard as well. Very versatile player. And, I think if you would take a guy like him at pick 24, he wouldn't have to step in and play right away. PFF grades are ridiculous. Now, keep in mind the level of competition here, but he also had a really good showing at the Senior Bowl as well. So I think he could be an option, but Really, the Vikings are an interesting spot where they could go a number of different directions at pick 24, or if they do end up trading back. So it'll all be very, very interesting. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's show. If you made it to the end, just hit me with a skull down below in the comments section. And also, I'm on Twitter at PatSeeps is the handle. And we will see you guys next time. Let's go Vikes.